Welcome to the Augusta Golf Show podcast. Now, here's John Patrick.
Colt Knost is the co-host of Gravy and the Sleaze on the PGA Tour Network on Sirius XM Radio. Also the co-host of the Subpar podcast and walks the fairways for CBS and their golf coverage. Going to be in Panama next week for the Latin American Amateur Championship. It is always a pleasure to welcome Colt Knost back to the Augusta Golf Show. How are you, Colt?
I'm good, John. Thanks for having me.
I've never asked you this. Did your parents look into the crib and call you Colt? Is that your given name?
That's it.
Okay.
Just Colt. Everybody thinks it's Colton, but no, just Colt.
Colton. What'd you do for the holidays?
I was around in Scottsdale playing some golf, and then for Christmas, I had to go to the wife's place in El Paso, see her family, which was rather cold, but still a lot of fun. Watched a lot of football. But yeah, I've been back in Scottsdale, just enjoying some downtime, actually getting to play a lot of golf, which is nice, and getting ready to go for the 2024 season. Will
the Christmas visit to the to your in-laws be the annual event now?
We shall see.
Oh, okay.
I was very happy to go. Let's just say that.
Point taken. You enjoy doing the Latin American Amateur and the Asian Pacific Amateur, don't you?
I do. It's fun. Obviously get to go to some incredible places, but then just the event that Augusta National, the R&A, and the USGA put on at those two events, it's just incredible. It's one of the most well-run events I've ever attended, and to meet these kids that are just so grateful to be there. Obviously, there's some that have a chance to win and punch that ticket to the Masters, the U.S. Open, or the Open Championship, but just to see how grateful some of the young kids are and the places they come from. I mean, when I do the Asia Pacific, there's some kids that the only time they play on grass is that championship, which I think is just remarkable. And then the Latin Am, the field just continues to get better, grow stronger, and we've seen some great players come out of both of them.
I assume the Asian field is deeper?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. I never got the chance to ask Chairman Payne this, but he must have taken so much pride in Hideki winning the Asian Pacific and then winning the Masters.
I would definitely think so. I mean, it's a pretty remarkable story for Hideki to win the Asia Pacific twice and then become a Masters champion. I think that's one of the many reasons we've seen the game of golf in Asia grow so much over the years. He's a huge part of that. But even the Latin Am, I mean, it continues to grow, like I said, get better. We've had great champions. Joaquin Neiman, won the Latin Am. There's some great players that have come out of there. Fred Biondi's a young kid that just turned pro out of Florida.
Yeah.
Was a staple at that event. So there's a lot of good players at both of them.
Do you get a sense, Colt, that at the Asian Pacific Amateur that there could be the sort of, the way the Asian players have made it onto the LPGA Tour? Could that sort of thing happen in male professional golf?
I think you're definitely trending that way. I don't think it's ever going to be as big as it is in the women's game. But, I mean, look at the players. I mean, you got Siwoo Kim, KH Lee, Tom Kim, so many great players. I'm definitely forgetting Sung Jae Im. There's so many good ones right now in the game of professional golf. It's going that way. I mean, I kind of joke with the President's Cup. I mean, you could see a team, full of people from Asia on the President's Cup team here in a few years, the way it's going. There's that many strong players out of there.
Speaking of strong amateur players, and I mean this to be a serious question. It's easy to fluff off. How would at the height of your amateur game, how would your game fare against these kids today?
That's tough. I just think the game's changed so much. It's all about distance now. And obviously I was one of the shorter guys. But the thing that benefited me in amateur golf is, all the big events, for the most part, were played up in the Northeast at old school traditional golf courses. There was a lot of dog legs. It was a premium on hitting the fairway. And so I thrived in those conditions. You put me at the same spot as a Dustin Johnson or someone that hits it far, like I can compete from there. But they didn't have the opportunity to push driver as much as they probably wanted to. So, that's why I think I did so well in amateur golf. I think I had a lot of game. There's no doubt about that. But the game has changed so much, especially in the professional ranks, where it's now you just absolutely send it down there as far as you can, go find it, and then knock it on the green. I have mixed emotions about that. Obviously, I know watching guys hit it far is very entertaining, but I still think there's something really cool about, the artists in golf. you look at Justin Leonard, Corey Pavin, those guys wouldn't, if they were turning pro now, they would have zero chance. And that's sad in my opinion.
Well, that leads me to the question of the rollback. How do you feel about the rollback?
I've never been for bifurcation. Like, I think it's so cool that the game of golf, I mean, the average guy can go, if he wants to pay the money to play Pebble Beach, play with the same clubs as Rory McIlroy, same golf ball, he can go do that. I don't like making a ball for the professionals and a ball for the rest of the world. I don't know exactly, looking at the numbers, I don't think the rollback, it's not really going to change anything. I mean, 6, 7, 8 yards here or there, not that big of a deal. I think they lost control of this thing a long time ago. I mean, everybody talks about the ball. I mean, just look at how big the driver is now. Mm-hmm. I know Adam Scott went on, I believe, Smiley Kaufman's podcast, and he said something that I think is this was perfect. He's like, the driver used to be the hardest club in the bag to hit. And when you hit it well, you got rewarded. Now, when anyone's nervous or they got a big shot, they're wanting to hit driver because it's the easiest club to hit. And I think that's where they lost the control, is the driver head is just entirely too big. Yes, the ball goes too far, but I think this should have been handled, 20, 25 years ago.
Do you think you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube?
I don't think so. It's I think equipment manufacturers would have a fit. I mean, think of all the time, money, research they've done to, make the driver bigger, make it easier to hit, make it faster, and then they're going to come back and say, hey, go the other way now. I don't think they would like that too much.
We're talking with Colt Knost here on the Augusta Golf Show. We'll get to the 24 season, but let me back up a couple of months. What was your visceral reaction on the Jon Rahm news?
I have a really good relationship with John. We live very close to each other here in Scottsdale. We talk a lot. He's been great coming on all of our shows. He came on our Subpar podcast the week after he won the Masters wearing the green jacket, which was unreal. So we talk a lot, and I was honestly shocked. You hear the rumblings, and in social media nowadays, there's so much stuff thrown out there that ends up not being true. But, yeah, I was a little shocked. But I guess when you get to the amount of money they say he got, I get it. I don't blame a man for turning down $300, $400, $500 million. That's just crazy money that I don't think any of us ever thought would be offered to a professional golfer.
Do you think, Colt, there was some strategy involved in that? He did it, banking on the fact that there's going to be an agreement?
In my opinion, yes, because he's exempt for the next 5 years to the PGA Championship, the Open Championship, obviously the Masters, a lifetime invitation, or until whatever age they cut him off, and then the U.S. Open, which he won in 2021. He's got 10 years from there. Mm-hmm. So he's in the majors for a long time. He's the third-ranked player in the world, so he's not going to fall out of the top 50 anytime soon. I definitely think there was some strategy behind this, thinking, okay, they're going to come to an agreement. We're all going to be together in maybe a couple of years. Why not take this ridiculous amount of money now, and then I'll be back sooner than later. And
in the meantime, I'm still playing in the majors.
Yes, which is what, all the top guys, that's what they really, really care about.
Do you think another big name player gets poached before the Masters?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the money they throw around, it's just, like I said earlier, it's ridiculous. I mean, it makes no sense to me, the amount of money they're doing it. I mean, I get it. They want a seat at the table, but these numbers are just unrealistic. I mean, they're up there with, the NFL, the NBA, and the game of golf is just not that. That's what frustrates me so much with all this is they want to compare this. They're like, oh, well, they're not getting Aaron Rodgers money. They're not getting Tom Brady money, LeBron James money. I'm like, well, it's because golf is not that. Like, golf is in a really good spot right now. They make a lot of money considering, what their TV ratings are and stuff that comes with that. So will another guy go? I wouldn't be surprised.
Do you think, Colt, that this, again, back to strategy, is this strategy on the Saudis' part, on the PIF part, to kind of, make sure the PGA Tour is still paying attention to the negotiations?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I think the way this has been handled, I'm guessing if the PGA Tour could go back and do it all over again, they would have met with them a lot sooner. So none of this would have happened. But yeah, they're definitely making a statement saying, hey, we're not going anywhere. Like, if you want to make this deal, we're here to do it. Otherwise, we're going to keep taking your players. And eventually, if it's up to them, more of the top players will be playing over on LIV than they will on the PGA Tour, which, the game of golf is not big enough to be divided.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. That's the other thing. I mean, the NFL, you create another league, there's billions of fans. In the game of golf, there's not. I mean, the average NFL Sunday game has more people viewing than the biggest golf tournament of all time. And I think that's where we need to sit back and look at. Like, we can't afford to have fans divided over two leagues. We all need to come together, and everyone needs to. The best players in the world need to be playing against each other as often as possible, more than 4 times a year.
BackstageCountry.com, your online home for all things country music. Country music has so many generous artists who always seem to jump in to help those in need. We're spotlighting 5 who lead by example and lend a helping hand to charitable causes. See who made our list when you text GIVE to 45911. Text GIVE to 45911 and read all about it right now on BackstageCountry.com.
Speaking of the best player in the world, who got more out of the deal, Tiger or Nike?
We talked about that yesterday. That's a great question. They both did very well. Let's just say that. I mean, the amount of money they made for each other is fantastic. Tiger, he's his 27-year deal worth around $500 million or whatever it was, and then there's no telling in the contract, so he got part of merch sales and stuff like that, apparel. So both sides came out very well at the end of the day. It's going to be shocking, though, to see him, whenever we see him play again on Sunday wearing a red and black shirt that doesn't have a Nike swoosh on it.
Now we're digging into the weeds, and I apologize for some of this. Does he form a clothing company, or does he sign on with somebody?
I've heard rumors that there will be something created from the current company.
Okay. What'd you think of Jason Day's wardrobe?
It's a different look, but hey, I mean, look, fashion is weird nowadays. Let's just say that. The blue shirt and khaki pants is kind of out the window. I mean, when you look at Hollywood and what these people are wearing, and then they're trying to kind of move into the world of golf, and it's a different look. I thought he looked fine. It's crazy how much attention it got, but hey, they could pay me if they paid me a certain amount of money, I'd wear whatever they wanted me to.
Okay, well, since we're talking about people, and it is what you do, how do you think Kiz did?
I thought he was good. He was Kiz. He sat back, seemed relaxed, and just talked golf. It was his first ever time doing TV, so it's hard to be critical. He didn't freeze up or anything like that. He threw some jokes in there, told some great stories. I thought what he talked about Scotty Scheffler and his putting, what he thought he could do to kind of fix his putting was great. I think this is what we need in the game of golf. We need younger. We need people that are, I hate to say inside the ropes, but people have a relationship with the best players in the world out there that can talk about it, share stories, share some inside information, as long as it's okay with the players. But just bring a different perspective. This whole thing about having to have a certain resume and be a major champion to be in the 18th tower, I don't believe in. As long as you know golf, you can talk golf, and you entertain me, I'm here for it.
Was there a spit jar next to Dan Hicks's leg?
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Okay, as someone who has been around the game as long as you have, doing what you've done, I think I understand. They don't come around often. I think I understand the phenom, the Ludwig Oberg, and those people. But explain Eric Cole to me. Explain how you find it in your early 30s.
Well, I mean, it's not the first time we've seen this. I mean, you go back to Matt Kuchar. Matt Kuchar was the same way. I mean, except he had the decorated amateur career, but he came out and he struggled. And then all of a sudden he made a name for himself in his 30s. But it's so cool to see. I mean, to not give up. I mean, golf's expensive. When you're playing the mini tours, I was fortunate enough not to have to go that route, but just talking to friends. I mean, it's expensive. You're talking $1,000 to $1,500 entry fees week in and week out. driving most of the time all around the country to play these events, trying to Monday qualify here and there. It's a grind. And for him to keep going as long as he did, I just tip my cap to him. It's awesome. And everyone that has known him for so long says how great of a player he is. And I guess the world finally got to see it this past year. It's special. I mean, I think he played 37 events total with the wraparound and everything. And then on his weeks off, he would go play mini tour events, which is just shows you how much he loves the game. But it's such a great story.
Does success out there really breed more success?
Yeah, I think for a guy like that, you always question whether or not you're good enough to play at the highest level with those guys. And then you get out there and you start having success and it keeps going. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, okay, I can do this. This is how I play the game. And it's good enough to compete with the best in the world. So I 100% absolutely agree that it does.
A couple of things before I let you go. Does Rory win a major?
I think he does this year. I picked him to win the PGA Championship at Valhalla, which was the site of his last major championship.
How important is it that he has divorced himself from all the extracurricular activities, and he seems now, I'm a golfer, and I'm going to concentrate on golf?
Yeah, that's something, I don't feel like the guys that are on the board get enough credit for how much time, effort, and energy it takes away from them. I mean, these phone calls, especially with everything that's going on, 5 years ago, it wasn't near this difficult or, the conversations weren't near this long. But, I mean, these phone calls, 5, 6, 7 hours, multiple times a week, I can't imagine having to deal with that. And, giving your opinion, sticking up for one side, trying to get this deal done. And then, oh, by the way, I got to go out and practice so I can try to beat the best players in the world, some of who that don't have to deal with this. I'm sure it's a huge weight off his shoulders being off that board. I know he wants what's best for the game of golf and was doing whatever he could to help the PGA Tour out. But I have to think this is going to be a monster year for Rory, knowing that he doesn't have to answer any of those questions anymore. He doesn't have to get on those phone calls. He can go out, practice when he wants to, show up at the events he wants to, and he's probably going to play extremely well.
And should he do all of that, he's contributing to the betterment of the game of golf.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Rory is great for the game of golf. I mean, he's one of the biggest stars we have, and I think it's, like you said, I think it's best when he's playing well, and, I mean, it would be great for him to win a major this year.
Do you think Tiger's going to be able to pull off one a month?
We had Justin Thomas on our pod this week, came out today, and, he said, like many of us, he's learned to not doubt Tiger Woods. I mean, whenever you say the guy can't do something, he goes out and does it. So, yeah, I honestly think we'll see him probably play with the 4 majors. I wouldn't be surprised to see him play 8 to 10 events.
Really? Okay.
I'm hoping.
Well, I get it.
Yeah.
And, you talk about what JT said. It is one of my all-time favorite lines that I guess just came out, what was it, years ago when David Duval was talking about, these young kids wish they had a crack at Tiger in his prime. And all David says, what the hell you do?
No, you do not. Yeah. It is, he's so good still. And, he's a tenth of what he was. But it was, I was kind of on the back end. I got on tour in 2008 and just watching him hit balls and go up, play rounds of golf, and just the way he dissected golf courses, it was just absurd. He was so much better than everyone else.
Is there something you guys talk about that you wish was on television coverage that isn't?
I do. I've always thought, and, I've always been a huge fan of the cut. I hate these events where it's, limited field, no cuts. The grind to make the cut Friday afternoon, I think, is great television. Like, I would rather see a guy who has to birdie the last or par the last to make a cut or something dramatic than seeing a superstar that's in 38th place that's going to limp into the weekend. Like, that's just, I would love a cut cam just watching, because it means so much to these guys, and I think you see it. Probably the only time you see a fist pump on Friday is a guy making a putt on the last to play the weekend, because he knows he gets a check, he knows he gets FedEx Cup points, and he has a chance to go win the golf tournament if he gets hot on the weekend.
He is Colt Knost, and he's doing just about everything from Sirius XM Radio to his podcast next week in Panama with CBS right around the corner. And I always appreciate you taking the time to do this, Colt. I know how busy you are. Thank you for doing this, and we will talk again at some point.
You got it. Thank you so much. I'll see you in April.